Okay, hi everybody. It's very nice to see you all here. Thanks for joining us on this panel. This panel is about the creative value chain in the age of AI. I had to Google that when they asked me to do the panel because I'm a creative type. So things like venture capital, value chain, make sense to me when I know what the definition is, but it takes me a beat. So thankfully I had ChatGPT to explain it to me. So my name is Ronit Novak, and if you can believe it, I'm the editorial director of The Grain, and you can find The Grain at thegrain.ai. So that is a media platform that explores how AI is changing creativity, culture, and the human experience. So I spend a lot of time on my podcast and other events and speaking engagements in conversation with artists, technologists, researchers, and educators about what this shift means for the way that we create, the way that we work, and the way that we make meaning about our lives and how we connect with one another. So I'm really glad to be here today to talk about one of the biggest questions of this moment, which is, where does value come from when intelligence and content are so abundant? That means there's a lot of slop out there. What's it worth? So I'm joined by three panelists with very different but complementary perspectives, and I'll introduce them to you now. Alan Lau is a three-time entrepreneur and venture capitalist focused on deep tech. I had to Google that too. He co-founded Wattpad, I know about that, where he helped build one of the world's largest storytelling platform and saw firsthand how AI can help surface great creative work at scale. Today, he's co-founder and operating partner at Two Small Fish Ventures, investing in companies building the next generation of creative and technical tools. And I'd like to introduce you to Elena Unisov, at the end. Elena is executive director at the Human Feedback Foundation. That is a nonprofit advancing a more open and human-centered AI future. She has worked across finance, research, and responsible AI, and her perspective centers on AI literacy, human agency, and governance, especially how creators, consumers, and institutions can shape AI in more human-centered ways. And then finally, Anthea Foyer. Anthea is the lead at the Creative Technology Office for the City of Toronto. She's got a background in the arts and experience supporting the city's creative tech ecosystem. She works at the intersection of creativity, production, and public sector innovation, with a focus on how AI is changing creative workflows and cultural infrastructure. So please join me in welcoming Alan, Elena, and Anthea. And if I missed anything, please add it when you have the opportunity. So today's conversation is about value, where it is, how it's changing, and who gets to shape it now that content is abundant and AI tools are becoming part of everyday creative work. So we're not here to take a binary pro or anti-AI position. You get enough of that on Instagram. Instead, we want to ask more targeted questions. We want to ask how creators retain agency. We want to ask who benefits when value gets reoriented, and how can we, as creators and consumers, adapt to this changing value chain. So we're going to start with a broad question, an easy one, okay? When content becomes abundant and inexpensive to make, what actually becomes valuable? Do you want to take that?
Maybe I'll take it. I guess some of you might be familiar with Wattpad, my previous company. I was the CEO and co-founder from 2006 until 2021 when the company got acquired. But one thing I experienced firsthand was the amount of content that we saw at the time. The day off, when I when the company got acquired, when I stepped off the CEO position, we saw 1 million uploads every day on the platform. And for context, as you may know, Wattpad was and still is the largest online platform for fiction readers and writers. We have 100 million monthly users around the world. It's by far the largest platform. And 1 million uploads per day in 50 different languages compares to the largest publisher, Random House. They publish 10,000 books per year. You can see the order of magnitude difference in terms of the size and the abundance of the content.
This is at scale before saying at scale became really popular.
So I saw this firsthand on both sides of the fence. Why I say both sides? Because we also help many of the writers on the platform and turn their perhaps a little bit raw user-generated content into movies, TV shows, and guess what? Published paper books selling in the bookstore, in Barnes & Noble, in Indigo, and other places. So in that context, I think the best writers can still make, not only make a living, they can make a lot of money as well. It's just that the curve has changed, the value has shifted. And I can say, well, I'm no longer with the company. I can share this more freely. Some of the best writers on the platform, they are millionaires because the movies were the #1 most watched movies on Netflix or Amazon Prime. Their books are New York Times bestsellers. They could and still can make as much money as before. It's just the way they make money very, very different.
Okay, so it goes back to the creators. When I'm asking about value, you keep going back to those creators created that content, right? And they're able to benefit from that because they were part of the process, not just part, but integral to that process.
Yes, absolutely. But I want to emphasize the way you also use the word reoriented, right? And I would say the way they make money drastically different than a traditional published writer in the sense that for those writers on Wattpad, they were very native to the platform in the sense that some of the best stories, they see 1 million comments. And as a writer, you have to respond to that and engage with the fan base. But the traditional writers, they probably did not have to do that. I'm just using this as an example. We saw the same thing on Instagram, on YouTube. You know, these platforms, they all went through the same evolution, and perhaps I should use the word revolution.
Right. So that sounds really optimistic and uplifting. Now, Elena, do you have any concerns about that momentum?
So I'm an optimistic person, so I don't know if I can throw water on the fire here, because I do believe in creative agency, and I believe that that's the upside of the technology that we have today, is that we can be more creative and do more. And I'm not, a painter, but I have images in my head, and now that I can articulate what it is and respond to whatever is being generated,
right.
It's a different act of creation.
Right.
And so for sure the relationship has changed between the artist and the tools. But there is no doubt at all that more people can become artists today compared to just even a few years ago. So that's a definite upside in my opinion. And I've talked about sort of the scaling laws of how technology has progressed, which of course has its own downsides because everything has the dark side. And so the dark side here is we have creators who have agency, who understand how to work with technology. Then we have technology itself, which now moved from we will organize the world's information and be index of whatever to we're processing the world's information and spitting it out in new shapes and forms, which has been the human activity before and very much connected to the creative agency. And then we have the consumers of AI that's you and me drowning in slop.
Yes.
And that
Do you
is
feel
no
that? Are we drowning
fun.
in slop yet? Yes.
Yeah, and so that part I'm very concerned about, because if you are on the consuming side of AI and you lack basic literacy, or perhaps you just, wish algorithms were more human-centered and
Right.
less divisive, then the lack of control over what you're drowning in
Right.
can be concerning.
So it sounds like there is a correlation here. You're focusing on the creator, the human creator, to moderate that scale output, to make it valuable. And you're taking the baton as well and saying that we need institutions and consumers and creators to be aware of that process and not let slop go wild.
I love the let all the flowers bloom. I mean, that's the ethos of the internet. But we are moving into a future where we will have more AIs on the internet than humans, for sure.
Right.
So it will be a quote unquote bot first
Sure.
platform, and I don't know what that means. For sure, you might need to authenticate all humans or something. I don't know, because we've moved on beyond human constraints in many ways. And so far as scale and what is finite is our attention and time.
Right.
That is a hard line.
Right.
There's only so many images your eyes can physically process in a
Right.
second. And so, of course, I think we need to build technology and products and the kind of art that respects and works with our limitations.
So, Anthea, my question for you is what role does government play, and specifically city government, which is really quite localized and impactful, in what way can they have a role in creating value and discerning what is valuable output and what is not?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think it's interesting, city government versus sort of provincial and federal government have very different roles in all of this. I mean, from the city government point of view, a lot of it is really just kind of convening and keeping conversations going and being aware of what's going on to be able to kind of support the movements and support the activities that are going on in these areas. I think I also, just before I sort of talk about the other levels of government and regulation, also just break out a little bit around the value of creativity versus the monetary value. So, and I think those are important, because I think there's a lot of, like, creatives will get tools. They don't care what they are, whether they're AI or something else, and they'll play and they'll create meaning and context and do wonderful things and terrible things. Like, that's, artists make good and bad work. That's true. They'll just keep making. But there's also a lot of business interests, obviously, in AI, and those regulate a lot of things as well. So if you look at even just to the music world, and you look at something like, a Spotify or a group like that, and they have a lot of control over the way musicians make money and what they do. And there's a lot of those in all fields, as well as the big companies, the Googles, the Facebooks, all of those. They have a lot of control over the AI at the moment. So I think there's this kind of space in what they're doing, and I think that's where the government regulation can come in, to really make sure that those intermediaries, the people that are for lack of a better word, kind of currently controlling and growing AI, they have some guardrails so that it doesn't just become this, and it's not a free-for-all space, because all of those areas, like all of those companies, have a very strong guardrails around what they do. They really want things to be in a certain way. So, for example, one of the conversations that Elena and I have had about creatives is around what is the form of AI that they're creating, and are they creating a form that is so structured that artists can't play in it very well, and can't stretch the edges and find those liminal spaces. So I think there's value in that, and also value in, especially at the federal government level, really looking at what the right regulations are to keep people safe, to allow people creativity, and to make sure that we're kind of being able to play globally with other creatives and creative industries as well.
Okay, that's a great response. And it leads me to a next question that I think is on everybody's mind. So a lot of us here have dabbled using AI tools, right? Whether it's image generators or text generators. And we found that it's very easy to get replaced, right? Terrifyingly so. And as a creator, your job is to create. It's to collaborate with these tools, not be replaced by these tools. So I have a question for all three of you. Whoever wants to jump on it first is, how can creatives integrate AI tools into their process without getting replaced by it? Does the technology currently exist, or are we going to need new technology that is more humble and more specific to a collaborative process with creators so that we can retain the value that only human creators can provide?
I'm happy to start with this one.
Please.
I think it's actually the same with this tool or with any tool.
Okay.
As an artist, you need to create your own language, your own style, your own voice. And whether you're working with Paint or whether you're working with AI, I think you need to figure out what it is you're trying to say and how you're trying to say it and what the right tools are for that. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a whole range of AI tools and AI creativity and AI artwork. And the people that I talk to, they're using it in such different ways. I have writer friends that are using it as a way to kind of like test out ideas and characters.
Right.
I have like people that are super into coding that are playing with the code to see how they can make that change. Mm-hmm. There's even people, I'm sure, that artists that would use AI Slop, but because they're using it in the right context, in the right way, they can make you think. So I actually think it goes back to just really having that strong sense of who you are as a creator, and then using the tools that way as opposed to letting the tools impact you.
Okay, Alan?
Perhaps I'll use a couple of analogies,
Okay.
and then at the end I'll come back to your question.
Thanks.
I think about 40 years ago, human invented a new product. And I think at that time I was very young. I'm over that, I'm not that old. I think at that time there was a lot of fear that tool would replace a lot of the jobs. And that tool is called the spreadsheet. I think a lot of the accountants would be very worried at that time. Well, I'm using pen and paper and the calculator to do all the accounting stuff, and now spreadsheet is replacing my job. And I can, I'm sure you all know, 40 years later, I think the world has more accountants than ever. And the second, perhaps not an analogy, is perhaps is an economic theory. It's called Jevons paradox. What that really means is, as the cost or the perhaps the convenience of producing something goes down, the overall demand actually would go up. We have seen this in electricity. 100 years ago, electricity was uber expensive, very difficult to get access to, and over time it became, you just plug into the wall, and it's cheap compared to 100 years ago. And of course, as you know, the world has more demand on electricity than ever. So same thing in a way also applies to creativity. Why I'm saying this? Using image generation as an example, honestly, I'm not a very visual person. That's why I ran a reading writing company. I'm not a visual person. I am terrible at that. But now, with all the AI tools, in a way, it democratizes the access to image creation. Now I feel like I can actually do a reasonably good job all by myself. Does it mean that it's replacing someone? Actually, no, because in the past, I would just not do it at all. But now, I'm creating some simple banner on my blog post, for example. In the past, I would just leave it without a banner, or just Google search for an interesting image. Why I'm saying this is because we should not view AI as a zero-sum game, because I think AI democratized the access, democratized the creation, and for people like me who could not create any visual content in the past, now we could. So in a way, I think the pie is growing, Of course, as we already discussed, perhaps the way how people create is changing, and we have to embrace that change. Like accountants should not use pen and paper to do simple calculation anymore, of course, right? But I think the overall demand, overall creativity, the overall creation actually would go up because of AI.
Okay. Anybody want to continue that thought? Elena? Just grab it. Just
So a couple of thoughts. I think it's maybe not fully true in a sense of, yes, democratizing technology, absolutely, but I do have anecdotal evidence. This is not, scientific research of people not hiring support for, let's say, design because they can do a job themselves reasonably well. And so whereas before they would give a chance to an entry-level junior designer. And so I do feel like we are in a situation, at least anecdotally, where that entry-level role is affected. And it is harder for people to build that expertise. I would say not expertise using the tools necessarily, but the main expertise even more so. And that's true in the arts world, it's true in the computer science and technical roles, where people are increasingly being asked to justify a new hire on the basis of, please prove that AI can't do that. And we also have economic incentives where companies are paying quite a lot for token and other costs, and so they may have a choice to face whether it's affecting their, CPU budget, or can they put a person on the job then. And so that person, if they do hire a person, will likely not be the most junior, because they're just not in the right place to derive the most value and therefore create more value for the company. And so as a nonprofit, we do quite a bit of work in trying to at least bridge that gap. And I don't know, so many people at the senior level and up are asking, well, where is the next me is coming from?
the next me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody who is a manager and up, who provably can create value just like Alan has, because you have so much depth. And so then AI amplifies you. It is harder for younger junior people to get there because their domain expertise pillar is not built out yet, and their skills also need work. So not to mention networks, and everything is just becoming closed because that's our natural reaction to the overwhelm. And so if everything is AI Slop, then I don't trust anything I see. Then I see Anthea, I can touch her. That is the person I'm going to spend my time with. And so in some way there's enclosures happening from everything being open and people connecting freely to transaction costs going up in some ways, because I don't know who I'm talking to anymore.
There's a lot there. Do you want to add to it, or shall I take it to a new moment? Well, what that makes me think of is, we're here at OCAD, and you all seem to have jobs, and we have people in the audience here who maybe don't, or maybe looking, or trying to adapt and configure how they are going to be their me in this new reoriented landscape that we have. So if we flattened the hierarchy, or if we've eliminated entry-level positions, how does a young, new creative establish value for themselves and connect with potential vendors, clients, employers, and say, this is the new value that I bring in this new era? Maybe it's human touch, maybe it's effort, maybe it's scarcity, maybe it's something else. But what advice might you give new creatives that are embarking in this world to kind of elbow in and say, I have value, and I would love for them to start really writing them down. Like, they might be surprising. It might be about live events, like human contact. It might be about touch. It be about something else. So I wonder if you have any ideas for them, how they can establish and learn what their new value might be.
I think I probably have 3 ways that I would tell them. So one is really the human touch. Go to things, meet people, get yourself out there and make people see you and meet you and get to know you as a person, because it's the same as it's always been in terms of getting hired. It's often someone that you know. So that doesn't change. I think one of the other ways is to just make things. If you love something, just keep making it. And with these new tools, it does make it easier and cheaper to make it. And just keep making things as much as you can, as many as you can. It both, helps you hone your skill in your craft, and it also gets you known because you get your projects out there more. And then the third way, which I think, youth have always been doing, but now probably is a great time for them to do it, is to just create their own companies and collectives and organizations. And they might come up with a new model that oldies like me would have no idea even what that looks like, because they've grown up in this soup. And so they might actually be able to create something that solves for some of these, junior problems, that solves for some of the value chain problems, that solves for some of the, what does a company look like? We've got some pretty standard ways we've done that for a long time, but maybe a company looks entirely different, and hierarchy in a company looks entirely different. And maybe they're the ones to kind of try that out and test that out while they're kind of fresh and getting into these industries.
Yeah, that's great. I hope you guys wrote those down. There's 3. I think I remember 2. Who's next? Yes, I'd love to hear all of you contribute to this, because I think it's such an important question for people in this room.
Yeah, maybe I'll jump in. I 100% agree that even for us, we are spending more time in building human relationship, because this is something that human can uniquely do that AI, at least in the foreseeable future, will not be able to replace. And foreseeable future, maybe 6 months.
Yeah.
Well, I'm exaggerating, but I think foreseeable future, probably AI cannot do nearly as good a job. But I would say, looking back at my own, if I may, flip this question as in, if I have a chance to talk to the 22-year-old version of me, what would I tell him as a fresh graduate? And I think I was very lucky that I had one professor told me at that time. He said, what you are going to learn in this classroom, I can guarantee you 5 years from now, let alone 30 years from now, you forget. But the one skill you have to pick up is learning how to learn. And I think in this era, I cannot emphasize how important it is, because the need for creating images, video, songs, perhaps even software, the need is actually going up. If you look at the number of, spare you some of the details, but if you compare the amount of software, in a way, software is also a form of writing. It's just that it's writing in programming languages. You may think AI has replaced software developers, but the truth is, the amount of software being created, perhaps human plus AI, actually grew by 10 times in the past 12 months. 14 times to be exact. So
people have started vibe coding, and then they figured out they have to actually learn how to code a little bit if they're going to vibe code.
Yes, but that's okay. The new programming language is actually English. If you can describe what you want to build, you can actually write software now that you couldn't possibly do before. And that's a new skill to pick up, right? And if you can pick up the skill, if you can embrace AI, AI will not replace you. AI will turn you into superhero. AI will turn you into superhuman. And I think we have to think about, again, as a non-zero sum, and how AI can become a turbocharger in your career.
Okay. Elena?
So, love the optimism. And yeah,
I told you they were contradictory but complementary opinions.
yeah. I mean, in journalism and elsewhere, people have been replaced. And so I think we should not be in denial that that is happening. And so fears people have are not unfounded. And what it means is the complexity has gone up as well. And so every time we get to a certain level of scale, our solutions for how operate within that level of scale are being challenged, and then eventually they break. And we've gone through those scaling sort of thresholds many times before, you know, with the internet being small then growing, and we go, oh, well, you know, previous ethos of free for all and everything doesn't work, because when you have 1 billion users, you need rules. And bad things happen at scale as well. And so with every sort of scaling threshold, the complexity goes up, and our answer and hope for that as the Human Feedback Foundation is get as many people as possible from the consumer of AI sort of end to the creative agentic role, where you don't lose that, because that is in danger. You have tools that are incredibly powerful. It's too easy, for example, to replace a human relationship with AI, and that we have a proof of already. There is a new kind of psychosis, and, you know, an AI girlfriend, God knows, all kinds of things. And so, but when you embrace the tools, but not uncritically, when you leave a big threshold of agency for yourself to question as you learn about how things work in this new reality, and then finding leverage points for yourself, whether it is creating a new company or adding value in some kind of role within existing ones, or maybe going into government, figuring out a role for yourself and exercising your agency, that is your human, you know, prerogative. And that I don't think we should relinquish so easily.
Do you think we're devaluing agency?
I think we are in a place where we need to put value on human anything in a way that we haven't had before. You know, what is the value of human judgment?
Right.
What do I as an employer pay people for?
Right.
And what is the value of curiosity and creativity? We've been accustomed to a world where we certify skills.
Right.
And then we sort of hire based on, okay, you know, X, Y, Z. And it is going to be both easier and harder to navigate. Easier because, yes, you can make things and you can build relationships and you can prove your value and and be discovered / seen / get yourself out there through algorithmic noise, of which there is a lot. But at least you can, you know, and on the downside is just the sheer noise and change and the scale of what is happening can be a lot for people. And so but to me, it's in every crisis, there is an opportunity.
Right.
And if you, as a human, find a way to shape the future of technology for it to benefit you, then we won, because that is not a guarantee. We've had technology for which we had very high hopes for, betray our hopes in the past, and we are in a society that is more divided than ever, and there is a lot about technology's outcomes that I do not love, and I was, you know, I grew through all of the changes and thresholds, and I've gone through my own, you know, disillusionment. And I think we should be looking at what went wrong with, let's say, social media, and trying our best not to repeat that with AI, and challenge the concentration of power, and take, I guess, the brushes back. And not think that whatever is being built is inevitably has to be in the way that it is.
It's interesting that you say that, and it's interesting that you talk about social media as something that, we need to learn from. We certainly haven't tackled social media yet. Like, they're still trying to figure out if they should ban it for kids under 16, right?
No.
We're still working. You say no to that.
Probably, I mean, in my opinion, in Australia,
Right.
it's already everyone is using VPN and fake profiles
Yeah,
and even their own
exactly. So it
profiles.
doesn't
And
work.
so it doesn't, those types of blunt instruments in the modern
Yeah.
era, I have all kinds of questions about.
Because it's not a human-centered approach. And these are words: human-centered, human-driven, human feedback foundation. The idea, the concept of human is coming up more and more as the antithesis to AI. And oftentimes it means more value. If humans worked on it, it's more valuable than a specifically 90% AI created tool. I want to ask Anthea and you, Elena, both, what does that mean to be human, to take a human-driven approach? And do we have to kind of redefine what that means now?
Absolutely. And I think one of the interesting things with technology is that it's one of the things as humans where we just kind of feel a little bit helpless against it. Oh, we don't know how to control social media. We don't know how to control the internet. We don't know how to control AI. It's inevitable. It's bigger than us. It's broader than us. And I think one of the most human things we can probably do is remember that they're just things.
Right.
Like, for me, there was like a mind moment when I realized that the internet is just big cables underneath the ocean. And I used to work at the city of Mississauga, and I was working on their smart city plan. The biggest threat was squirrels, right? Like, I mean, so.
I knew it. Squirrels all the time.
Yeah, or that big blackout that was, 20 years ago or so now, was also animals. So sometimes for me, just remembering that these are physical things. The internet is a physical thing. There are technologies that we as humans create.
Right.
Therefore, we have power over them to make them what we want them to be. And whether that's through how we make things with them, through government regulations, through the way businesses organize them, all of those things can make it more human. So I think in some ways we need to take back our agency over this thing, this object that we created.
Right.
And I think if we can do that, then we can start to make the changes, whether around looking at how is this affecting our jobs and what does that mean on a broader scale societally, what does it mean creatively, what does it mean as a consumer. But I think we need to be able to say this is a thing that we have agency over, not just are affected by.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like older than I look, and I've been around a few technological transitions too. And I can say that, like, we have suffered a lot, especially creatives, in terms of how much input we have in these production processes. And in a lot of ways, like, the idea of what being human has been like rubbed out or almost devalued. And I wonder if, as creatives who've been working and living in a contracting industry for a decade or two, do we need to just reconnect with what it means to have human agency and what human agency is? Is it picking up brushes? Is it having conversations? Do we need to start smoking again? Like, what do we have to do to be more human? Because, I mean, the consensus is that more human is more valuable. We're going to get to whether that is actually an accurate paradigm or not. But right now, I want to ask you, do we really need to reconnect with what it means to be human, or is that changing? Is it a new definition now?
Well, I guess just like everything, that definition would and should evolve over time. If you ask our grandparents what human connection means, probably they would have completely different idea. If you ask my two daughters, 20 years old, human connection means Facebooking, FaceTiming their friends all the time, right? Not saying I agree or disagree. I'm just saying this is pointing out as almost like as a matter of fact. So I guess everything there's a trade-off. Everything there's unintended consequences. But we also have to remember, we cannot solely live in the past as if nothing would change. In the sense that for those who fought the internet, who fought the personal computer, who fought the smartphones, right? I still have relatives refuse to use smartphone and not on the internet one, but those are pretty rare. But we have to ask ourselves, is it net positive or net negative? Of course, there are unintended consequences, like social media. Are we regulated enough? Maybe not. But are we regulating in the right way? Absolutely not. Right? Perhaps there needs to be a little bit better regulatory framework to help us all get better. I don't have all the answers, but all I know is the genie is already out of the bottle. I don't think we can live in the past. So back to your question, I think human relationship will change because of AI and because of all the technology shifts. It's how we embrace in the new world.
Okay. Elena, I'm still thinking about what you said about consumers, and earlier in our conversations a couple of days ago, you mentioned handlers as those who are absorbing or receiving content, and that you're saying that they might want to be more engaged or interacting more with that content and create their own content. I'm also old enough to remember a time when you would go over to people's houses and there was a guitar on like everybody's couch, because we were not just buying music, but we would just make it sometimes, for no reason other than just being human. So I wonder, what does that look like for, we're so, for a couple decades now, just been so prone to buying, subscribing, listening to content online and not making it, or not really feeling like what we make is valuable enough to be considered art or saleable. What can consumers do? What does that look like to be an engaged consumer who's also making content?
So again, it's a big question. I don't have a clean answer to that.
You guys have to figure it out.
I do think there is a massive role that education needs to play in finding answers to that massive question. And ideally, the outcome is we're all better humans and not idiocracy.
Right.
And we have a choice to make because it is much easier than ever to have AI go do whatever and then just trust and live with the outcome that it spits out. And it does take some work to engage with it proactively and shape the outcome in a way where you need to guide it and steer towards the end, which then puts you in the ownership position over what's called the loop. And so that I like, because I think it is fundamentally human, again, prerogative to own the loop, to set the objectives, to set the rewards, to get technology to make soup and not burn forests down.
Right.
And that is the ability to learn. It's the curiosity. It's the bar for quality.
Right.
In some ways, I think we should go back and look back at history and feel more inspired. I mean, every time I go and see what people have built with their bare hands with no technology available to them at all.
Right.
And I'm at awe of those older buildings. And I do wonder where that has gone and why everything is sameness, same white, beige, bare bone aesthetic. I think that is the education's role, is to uplift us and encourage that expression and learning, and for us not to live in a beige house with no color, drive a beige car, and watch idiotic shorts all day. That would be a terrible waste of human potential.
Let me ask another question, kind of going back to the paradigm of, if human art is more valuable, can we envision a world where AI art is more valuable than human art?
I mean, the value is in the head of, there's a theory of value, right? Like the value is in my head and your head, and if you like what you like, maybe it doesn't matter who made it or how, but maybe it matters to someone else. And
Right.
where is that consensus coming from is an
Right.
interesting question that is taking me back to the human feedback, because that loop can't be coming from a handful of companies
Right.
defining what I should see in my feed or what I should get from AI that they've created. I think there needs to be a human input into these systems, and we have not figured out the ways to get that to happen. I mean, we've had some models work on Twitter. There is the community notes. That is awesome, because that decentralizes authority and in a way that is informing general literacy over what is true and what it isn't, what isn't. And similar models of discernment, I hope, will emerge, where we won't be told by a handful of deciders,
Yeah.
and that they won't take the role of, the two publishing houses, and that there needs to be alternatives to that.
Right. Well, Anthea, you seem like a pretty trustworthy, sensible decider into what is valuable in terms of art and content for residents of Toronto. What is the city doing or thinking about when it comes to discerning value in art in our city? Is it a human-centered approach? Is it an AI-driven approach? Or is it a hybrid of those two?
I mean, I think artists use tools, and so I'll always go back to that. Artists use tools.
Yeah.
AI can, at some point, and probably even now, sort of create on its own, but it's all based on things that we've already done as humans.
Yeah.
So there is actually no point of AI that doesn't have a human touch, because we made it.
Okay.
And so I think that for me, anything that's around kind of good, if you're asking what is good art or valuable art, I mean, it's about context, place. And I also think to be perfectly honest, I think there's a lot of room for bad art. And I think there's a lot of room for mediocre art, because there always has been.
Is the city thinking about this consciously during exhibitions or during programming?
Well, the thing that the city would be thinking about would really be, how can we enable the artists in the city to be able to share what they want to share.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, the city doesn't have, I have many opinions. The city itself does not have an opinion on the art that's out there.
Yeah.
Obviously, we want Toronto to be shown in a good light. We want to, have events that show the diversity, the quality, and the range of art and creative work and creative companies that exist here. And so our role is more to ensure that if someone has a strong vision that they feel is valuable, we can find a way to support that.
Right.
But the work itself because there is every kind of work that the city supports, everything from very grassroots community art to big film productions to interactive video game, immersive works. All of those are absolutely valuable in a city. So our role is to just make sure that if you want to make that, you have the opportunity to be able to do that.
One of the quotes, and I know we're wrapping up soon, and I'm going to kind of say this as a closer, is one of the quotes from Canada's AI strategy, AI for All, is, I think it was page 24, $50 million, write this down, for creatives, right? That's grants and funding for creatives to use AI in their own way. And that's it. So now it's up for creatives to figure out what in their own way is. So I'd like one, thought from each of you, if you can help the creatives in this room get some of that $50 million, and that's an incentive, but I would think that they might be, considering the crowd here, they might be interested in figuring out what their own way is. So what advice might you have for figuring out how to use an AI tool in their own way?
Well, your question reminded me something. in the past, I spent a lot of time trying to understand how Disney became such a giant. And one thing that really jumped out at that time was that Disney would, you can argue whether Disney is artistic or creative company or not. Okay, let's not start that debate. It's very commercialized, of course, we understand. But Disney would never call itself a movie company. Disney's mission is to entertain people. It's all about entertainment. And whether they are successful or not solely depends on whether the receiving side, the consumer, feel like they are entertained, whether they are getting enough value or not. So as a creator, of course, you have 100% creative freedom in using that $50 million to do whatever you want. But if you, I'm not trying to say everyone wants to commercialize. It's not just about money. But if you want to create value for the audience, for your creation, maybe that's where that's a good starting point.
Right.
And think about how you can best use that $50 million so that you can get the best entertainment value out of the audience.
Right. Okay, that's interesting, an audience-centered approach.
Yeah, I'm not saying this is the right way, but this
Yeah.
is one of the ways for people to think about this.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good one.
There's so many different kinds of art that I'm not sure I would know how to exactly say that, but I would say, you know, if it's government money, probably looking at things like building a company, building a community, and building a broader movement is probably more likely to be able to access that kind of money, because the more people you can reach and touch and uplift at the same time, that's probably going to have more access to those kind of funds.
Another good piece of practical advice. Okay, Elena.
So I have a call to arms to share.
Okay.
I feel like we are in a moment where we can, given our access to some of the best models that exist, create our own parallel world and use that window of opportunity, which may or may not stay open, to our advantage and create tools that we can all share and govern some version of our own artistic commons, because we know our context and domain the best. And what that looks like, I don't know, but there is an opportunity for that now to be done at the scale of a sector, where we won't have to be depending so much on somebody's decisions on what model I should even use, which has happened recently, and where I can have more choices, more say, and less lock-in into technology, given the immensely important role that it plays. So it's not a subscription that if it goes away, I'm fine. It's literally, how will you function if somebody turns off all electricity everywhere? And if we're talking about that level of dependency, then I think artistic community is primed to help everybody figure out what those ways could be of both artistic expression, in a sense that it would help everybody else, because artists are amazing explorers in processing this massive change we're all going through, in dealing with our fears, founded and not, in getting past many blockers that we face. And that is an important role, but also very practically on the tooling layer, I think there is an opportunity to do amazing things collaboratively that will sustain the sector for years to come.
Thank you. That is a very uplifting note to end on, rooted in realism, but with a path forward. So I appreciate that, and I think that's a great way to finish. I want to thank you very much, Alan, Anthea, and Elena, for sharing. Like, you obviously have a lot of skin in the game, and I really want to thank you for sharing your personal thoughts and your professional expertise on this topic, because I think it's very helpful to all of us on a lot of levels. I left you no time for questions because they're all on LinkedIn, and please use this opportunity to meet and connect and chat with them. And I want to just give you guys all a big warm round of applause. Everybody please chime in. Thank you very much. I learned a lot today, and I think everybody did, and I think you might have as well. So thank you very much.